Part 3. Chapter 19. The New Case. Detective David Hart returned to his office after visiting Marcus's grave, the weight of the case still heavy on his shoulders. The Phantom had been his most challenging adversary, and the scars of that battle were both physical and emotional. But as he sat at his desk, flipping through the cold cases, he knew that the world didn't stop because one monster was gone. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Sarah Lopez, his partner, carrying a file that looked disturbingly thick. "Got something new," she said, her face a mixture of excitement and concern. "A series of murders upstate. They've got some similarities to the Phantom's MO." Hart took the file, flipping through the photographs and reports. The killings were brutal, precise. The victims were all young women, each with a specific pattern carved into their skin. A calling card. "Looks like someone's picking up where Marcus left off," he muttered, a chill running down his spine. Chapter 20. The Copycat. The new killer, dubbed the Phantom's Shadow by the press, was meticulous, just like Marcus. But there was something different, something that suggested a deeper level of sadism. The Shadow wasn't just killing to satisfy a need for control. They were doing it to send a message, to taunt the authorities. Hart and Lopez traveled to the latest crime scene, a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The victim, a college student named Emily, lay on the floor, her body a canvas of horror. The pattern on her skin was intricate, almost artistic, and it sent a clear message to Hart. The game was far from over. "This one's more twisted," Lopez observed, her voice steady despite the gruesome scene. "They are enjoying it, taking their time." Hart nodded, his mind racing. "We need to get inside their head, find out what makes them tick. If they are following Marcus's path, there will be clues, something to connect the dots." Chapter 21. The Profile. Back at the precinct, Hart and Lopez worked with the profiling team to build a psychological profile of the new killer. Dr. Megan Whitfield, a forensic psychologist, was brought in to assist. "The Shadow is highly intelligent, methodical, and deeply narcissistic," Dr. Whitfield explained, her fingers tracing the lines on the map of murder locations. "They are likely someone who followed Marcus's case closely, possibly even corresponded with him or studied his methods in depth." Hart frowned, his mind returning to the endless letters and fan mail Marcus had received during his trial. "We need to look at the correspondence Marcus got, see if there's a common thread, someone who stands out." The search through Marcus's fan mail was tedious, but it yielded a name: Thomas Gray. Gray had written to Marcus multiple times, expressing admiration for his artistry and even suggesting improvements. It was a chilling discovery. Chapter 22. The Hunt Begins. Thomas Gray was an elusive figure, but Hart and Lopez tracked him down to a small town upstate. He worked as a librarian, a quiet man with an unassuming presence. It was the perfect cover. Hart and Lopez surveilled Gray, watching his every move. He was careful, almost too careful, as if he knew he was being watched. One evening, Gray left his house carrying a large duffel bag. Hart's instinct screamed at him to follow. They tailed Gray to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, they found a macabre workshop, photographs of victims, detailed notes, and a chilling shrine to Marcus. It was clear, Gray was the Phantom's Shadow. "He's escalating," Lopez whispered, her eyes wide with horror. "We need to move now." Hart nodded, but they were too late. Gray was already gone, slipping through their fingers like smoke. Chapter 23. The Chase. The discovery of Gray's lair intensified the hunt. Hart and Lopez worked around the clock, following leads, interviewing anyone who had contact with Gray. The pressure was mounting, and the media frenzy didn't help. The public was terrified, and the police were under immense scrutiny. Gray continued to taunt them, leaving clues that led to dead ends, each one more frustrating than the last. Hart felt the weight of every failure, every victim they couldn't save, but he refused to give up. One night, while reviewing the evidence, Hart noticed a pattern in the locations of the murders. They formed a spiral, each one leading closer to the city. It was a breadcrumb trail, and at the center was the heart of downtown, a perfect hunting ground for someone like Gray. Chapter 24. The Confrontation. Hart and Lopez set up a task force, preparing for the final confrontation. They narrowed down potential targets, focusing on locations that matched Gray's previous victims' profiles. It was a tense waiting game, the hours stretching into an eternity. The break came when Gray made a mistake. A surveillance camera caught him entering an old theater, one scheduled for demolition. Hart knew this was it, the final showdown. They moved in, a team of officers surrounding the building. Hart and Lopez led the charge, their guns drawn, their hearts pounding. Inside, the theater was dark, the air thick with dust and decay. Gray was waiting for them, standing on the stage like an actor in a twisted play. He smiled as they approached, his eyes gleaming with madness. "Welcome, Detective," Gray said, his voice echoing through the empty hall. "I've been expecting you." Hart aimed his gun at Gray, his finger steady on the trigger. "It's over, Gray. Surrender now, and no one else gets hurt." Gray laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You don't get it, do you? This is just the beginning. I'm not the only one. There are others out there, inspired by Marcus, waiting for their turn." Lopez moved to flank Gray, her eyes locked on him. "We'll find them, just like we found you." Gray's smile widened. "Good luck with that." Before Hart could react, Gray lunged, pulling a knife from his coat. The shot rang out, the sound deafening in the confined space. Gray fell, clutching his chest, his smile fading as the life drained from his eyes. Chapter 25. Aftermath. The aftermath of the confrontation left Hart and Lopez exhausted, but there was no time to rest. The hunt for other potential killers inspired by Marcus and Gray continued, a relentless pursuit of shadows in the darkness. Hart couldn't shake Gray's final words. There were others, and the battle was far from over. But for now, they had won a small victory, a moment of respite in the ongoing war against the darkness. The press hailed them as heroes, but Hart felt no triumph. He knew the cost of their victory, the lives lost and the scars left behind. But he also knew that he couldn't stop, couldn't rest until every last shadow was brought into the light. Chapter 26. The New Normal. Returning to a semblance of normalcy was difficult for Hart. Every case, every crime scene brought back memories of Marcus and Gray. He threw himself into his work, determined to stay one step ahead of the darkness. Lopez remained a steadfast partner, her strength and resilience a constant source of support. Together, they tackled each new case with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the battle was far from over. But there were moments of light, moments where the weight of their burden lifted, if only for a while. Hart found solace in small victories, in the lives they saved and the justice they delivered. It wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was enough to keep him going. Chapter 27. The Unexpected Twist. Months passed, and the city slowly began to heal. The memory of the Phantom and his shadow faded, replaced by new headlines and new fears. But for Hart, the past was never far behind. One evening, a letter arrived at the precinct, addressed to Hart. The handwriting was familiar, too familiar. It was from Marcus, written before his execution. Hart opened the letter, his heart pounding. The message was short, but it sent a chill down his spine. "Dear Detective Hart, you think it's over, but it's not. There's someone else, someone closer than you think. Look within your own ranks. The game continues. Yours always, David Marcus." Chapter 28. The Betrayal. The letter threw Hart into a frenzy of paranoia and suspicion. Someone within the police force, someone he trusted, was a potential killer. He couldn't afford to trust anyone, not even Lopez. He began a covert investigation, reviewing files, looking for patterns, for anything that might point to the traitor in their midst. It was a delicate balance, keeping his actions hidden while trying to root out the darkness within. His search led him to an officer named Brian Cole, A quiet man with an unremarkable record. But there were small things, inconsistencies that didn't add up. Hart's instincts told him he was on the right track. One night, he followed Cole, watching as he left the precinct and headed into the city. Cole led him to an abandoned building, the same one where Gray had made his last stand. Inside, Hart found evidence that confirmed his worst fears. Cole was continuing Marcus's work. Chapter 29. The Final Showdown. Hart confronted Cole in the abandoned building, the tension thick in the air. Cole's calm demeanor shattered as Hart laid out the evidence, his eyes flashing with a mixture.
Share your thoughts below, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can check out more videos like these, right now.